Okay guys, now we are ready to dive into our module data. Now, as I said before, this is not required for every module to work, but it is very helpful if you need any data saved. For example, in our example, we are going to need to collect information about our COM port. We're going to need the name, baud rate, parity, all that stuff. And we would like that information saved so that we can close Vixen, and then next time we open it up, we don't have to re-add all the values in there. This class gets created just like we did the other ones. It will be inheriting from a base class, and then we'll add our information from there. Now, I already ran through this tutorial once. I actually accidentally hit the wrong key and I canceled the recording, which deleted it instead of stopping it and saved it. But now I know that it did run a little bit long, so I'm actually going to split this into two parts. So let's dive in and get started. Go back into C# if you're not in there already, and let's go ahead and add our module data class. Right click on your project, go to add class. Let's give it a nice descriptive name. We're going to call it my data object. Go ahead and click add. Now to start off, we need to add our Vixen namespaces as we did before. The ones we will need for our data object, we are going to need the Vixen namespace, and we are going to need the Vixen module namespace. So go ahead and add them. Now, for the next reference we need, I'd like to describe a little bit of what the data object, or how Vixen is going to deal with the data object. Basically, it takes this data object and it serializes it and deserializes it so that I can save the data or we can use it. And in order for it to do that, it needs a reference to the system.runtime.serialization. So we need to add that reference. Let's add the reference. Just like before, we right clicked on references, add reference. And then under the .NET tab, scroll down to system.runtime.serialization, and then add that to our references. You'll see if you expand it, it is in there now. And let's go ahead and add that namespace. System.runtime.serialization. Now, as I said before, in our data object, we are going to be accessing information for COM ports. So in order to handle that, we want to add the reference for system.io.ports. This gives us access to things like stop bits and parity and stuff like that. So now we can go ahead, like I said before, we were going to create our class and we were going to inherit from a base class. So let's go find out what that base class is. If you go into the object browser, under Vixen module, go ahead and expand that, you will see a module data model base. That is the base class for our module data object. So go back to our new class, click colon to inherit from it, module data model base. And as we did before, go ahead and right click on that and implement the abstract class. Now you will see in here there is only one method that it's mandatory for us to fill out, and we will actually, that is part of what I'm going to handle in the next part. In this part, let's get all of our members in there and learn a little bit of information on that. Now, in order for the serialization to take place, we actually have to, number one, we need to make this class public. I believe I ran into problems before I did that. But what we need to do is we need to decorate this class with the DataContract attribute. In order to decorate something with an attribute, what you do is directly before it, you put a bracket and start typing DataContract. You will see DataContract come up. Hit the tab key and bracket. Now that makes this class have the attribute of DataContract. DataContract is actually found in system runtime.serialization. Now that defines our class as with the DataContract attribute. Now for all the members that we want saved, for example, our port name, baud rate, all that, we have to give each one of those the attribute of DataMember. So in order to do that, let's start. Oh, wrong place to put the space. Just neaten that back up. Right over top of this public, let's give ourselves some room. We are going to add our members. The members we need the port name, we need the baud rate, stop bits, data bits, and parity. So let's start with our port name. Port name would be like COM1, COM2, COM3. So we have to give it the attribute of DataMember. Okay, we have to make sure it is public. Port name is kept as a string. So let's just make our DataMember, or I'm sorry, our member name port name. And that's all you have to do for that. Now we're going to do the same thing for each DataMember that we need. Let's do baud rate. We got to do public. Baud rate is saved as an int 32. Baud rate. Okay, we need another one for our parity. So give that the attribute of DataMember. Public. Parity is the type. And lowercase parity will be our member name. Okay, we need one for databits. DataMember. Public. Databits is also saved as an int 32. Databits. And then lastly, we need one for our stop bits. Mark that with DataMember. Public. Stop bits is its own type. Stop bits. We'll do lowercase stop bits. Okay, so these are all of our members that we need for our class. I'm just going to neaten this up a little bit. Now, once we get finished with these, Vixen will save all of this information for us. Now, one thing I also did figure out, we can actually set default values so that the first time this class is called, it will actually, or when it's initially called, we can actually have it set whatever values we think should be the default. Now, port name really wouldn't make sense for us because on any given computer, we don't even know if there is a COM port, let alone whether it's COM1, COM2, COM3. But baud rate, we can pretty much set up. I think the generic setup is usually 9600. I think is what Windows sets it up as default. Parity, we can give it a default value of none, parity.none. Data bits are usually 8. And stop bits are usually 1. Stop bits dot 1. Okay, let's stop this here, and then when we start up on the next part, we will dive into the clone method here.